Hey everybody, it's Ellen. Good evening and welcome to Crazy for You Live. I am super excited tonight because this week we have the wonderful Trisha Malcolm joining us from Rowan Yarns. Trisha was the VP, managing editor, editor-in-chief of Vogue Knitting for almost 20 years. And if She's basically the Anna Wintour for knitters. And if you don't know who Anna Wintour is, she is the woman that Meryl Streep's character in The Devil Wears Prada was based on. So that is who Trish Malcolm is, only there's a huge, huge difference. And it is that I actually had an opportunity to meet Trisha Malcolm at a Rowan event, and she's not at all like the character from Devil Wears Prada. She's absolutely lovely, and I'm so excited that she is here. She's recently, I guess within the last couple years, joined Rowan as their executive brand strategist. So what she does is she brings her incredible experience and insight looking at fashion trends and brings them to the knitting world and ultimately to your hands so that you can knit beautiful and fashionable things. So, and she does this in a way that I think is just incredibly relevant and accessible. I've said many times that Rowan, and particularly Mode at Rowan, Mode being their wonderful new, very youthful line, that Mode at Rowan is incredibly, not fashion forward, but fashion reflective. So that means that the kinds of things that you see in the Mode at Rowan pattern book are the kinds of things that you would buy at the store. So I love that. So I think you're going to enjoy tonight very, very much. I'm sure that you will have questions and comments. So if you do, please go ahead and put them in the comments section, and Trish will answer those for you at the end, or if we have a chance. So Trish is going to share with you tonight some of the fashion trends that she's seen over the past year and how those trends are reflected in the Mode line. And so without further ado, please help me welcome Trish Malcolm. Let me put my earphone in so I can hear her. Hi, Trish. How are you? Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ellen. It's lovely to be here.
Have you ever been compared to Anna Wintour before?
Well, actually once, and and it was an Australian radio show. They just happen to have a knitting week every year, and she referred to me as the devil who wears Pharaoh.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. So you're much kinder than that. I never had the opportunity to meet Anna Wintour. Have you met her?
I haven't met her, and a lot of people think because of Vogue Knitting, we might have been in the same building or might have seen her or something. But no, whenever I went to Condé Nast to the offices, I always met with the licensing people, so never the editorial people. So no, I haven't met her, but I know she's not a fan of Vogue Knitting.
No, really? Why not?
Well, I think she thinks it's not, it's not as on trend as like a fashion magazine is. It's for people who knit, and people who knit tend to knit things they can wear, not, things they can't wear.
Well, there's that, yes. And we don't tend to have maybe the budget that the people who buy right off the runway have. So we have a ton of people who have joined us tonight. I'm just going to welcome them real quick. Hi, Amelia and Danette. You made it. Hi, Joan, Eveline, Terry, Connie, Karen, Mason. That's Michael. Hi, Jal, Amelia, Gail, Antonella from Naples, and B. Oh, so excited. So thank you guys so much for joining us. So I really do appreciate you taking the time to be with us tonight, Trisha. I know you must be super, super busy, but we're all interested in how you do the magic that you do. But I guess I'm also really curious if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about yourself and how you got this incredibly plum job.
Well, I think it's a lot of hard work and a lot of luck, actually was a school teacher, a high school teacher, and I came to New York and I ended up getting a job at McCall's Needlework and Craft magazine. Do you remember that? Back in the day?
I do, absolutely.
Yeah. So I worked there, and then I worked in various other sort of magazine-y jobs, and generally pretty much all related to either craft or to home decorating. And then eventually, a few years later, a job opened up at Vogue Knitting. So I went there for a little while, and then I worked on some other projects and books and different things. And then I left. And then a few years later, I came back again to work on a publishing project. And the person who was doing Vogue Knitting left, and I was just in the right place at the right time. So it's one of those moments, really.
How modest you are.
Well,
so have you always...
Also,
go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, and also I love knitting. So, that helps.
Well, I was going to ask whether you came to the industry as a knitter or more as from a publishing perspective, or both.
Well, mainly from the publishing perspective, but I did grow up knitting, sewing, embroidering. There's not many sort of needleworky things that I haven't tried. So I did, I learned to knit when I was 4. And I grew up in Australia, and we all just learned to knit, It was just a thing. So it was also my love of all of those things that got me into craft publishing. So I'm sort of more of a specialist in, the needle arts, if you want to call it that, even though I hate that word.
I do also. I hate that I'm an arts and crafts store. That's my business category. And I really loathe that. I talk about it all the time, how knitting is part of the fashion supply chain and not part of the arts and crafts supply chain. And I think my most recent newsletter article was about how the colors and the textures that you see in yarn store yarns are so very different from what you see in a craft store, because they are influenced by, that cerulean blue from the whole Pantone thing. So I think it's important that people really kind of get that and sort of, I don't know, defensive in a way.
No, I completely agree with you. I'd rather, if you're not going to call us fashion people, then call us makers.
Right.
Creative.
Crafters. Yes. Crafters sort of smacks of, I don't know. What is it? Gluing glitter on craft.
Exactly. I think we're a little more highbrow than that.
Maybe a smidge. We like to think so anyway. We're a sweater store. I like to make stuff that we can wear,
Exactly.
So
we make clothes. That's a whole different thing. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm interested in the whole fashion process, and I know a lot of our viewers are. And one of the things that I just love about Rowan in general, and I talked about this with David McLeod, he was saying that what makes Rowan so special, and you guys know this because when you look at the magazine, it doesn't read as a pattern collection, it reads as a fashion magazine, which I love. And he said that that's because it's very designer led. So here you are with the whole trend thing. Can you talk a little bit about how that process works of working from, you've got the trends and the concepts and the designers?
Yeah, I can talk about it. I don't actually work very closely with the designers at Rowan. Like I did that at Vogue Knitting, and actually pretty much everyone in the Rowan design stable I've worked with before. But at Rowan, those jobs are all set up and taken care of. So I do a lot more promotional things. But the way Rowan goes about putting together their collections is they do look at trends, and they do that by looking at trend forecasts, which come out, 2 to 3 years, sometimes even further ahead of the actual season. And they're the same trend forecasting materials that the fashion industry is looking at. But when I look at it, and I pull together my trend report and my thing that I'm doing tonight for you, what I'm looking at is the interpretation of all of those trends by fashion designers, and then by the Rowan designers. And it's interesting to see, they're all influenced by similar kind of trend information. And it's interesting to see how they both approach it and what the similarities and differences are. And then what I do is I've got this trend presentation that's basically taken from the runways, like all over the world. And I'll explain that in a moment. But then what I've done is I've taken what Rowan's done that fits in with those trends and included that in here as well. So the trend presentation I have here, I have a process, and I've been doing this for a long time, you know, for Vogue Knitting, and I've done it a lot for Vogue Knitting Live and taught this before and all that sort of, you know, presented before. But what I do is I actually watch every fashion show. And I mean, it takes ages, but I do a few every day, and it's lovely. And I learn so much. And what I do is I actually photograph the pieces that are knit. And when I've got all of those in front of me, and there can be a couple of hundred, obviously, there usually are several hundred, then I can sort of group them. So I look at what emerges. So, you know, you'll see a particular trend, and you'll see it happen at many different shows. And that's when I pull the presentation together. And obviously everything isn't here because we'd be sitting here all night, but you know.
I have all night. I don't know about you, but I love to watch the fashion shows. Do you watch those on like a style.com or?
No, I watch them on, I go to Vogue.com.
Vogue.com. Okay. I think they bought style.com at some point back. Yeah. So yes. I know that you have this great presentation, and I'm excited to see it. And I know everybody else is excited to see it too. So let's go ahead, and if you want, let's get to it.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Let's see. I think, yes. Okay. So you're on. Can you see your presentation is up?
Okay, my only problem with my presentation is it's not letting me move forward. Hang on, I can do it this way. There we go.
Are we good?
Yep. Yeah, I've got a new Mac, so it's got this like little bar at the top, and you can see the little tiny screens. It's great. Okay, so I'm going to start with color, because that's a whole other trend unto of itself. So each year Pantone comes out with a color of the year, and I'm sure everyone's heard of that and knows about it. And the way that they come up with that color is they put together in basically a big hotel room for a couple of days, trend forecasters and people who are involved in color from many different industries. So there'd be people from the car industry, there'll be people from the home deck industry, the jewelry industry, the fashion industry. And they pull them all together. And these people are pretty much, not that there's like real training for this, but they work at this, and they have a very strong sense of where we're headed and what the colors might be that we're, being influenced by. Now, trend color forecasts happen a couple of years in advance, so they've seen all those too. But from those forecasts and from where we are as a society and as a culture, they pull together a color of the year. So it's very interesting that they pulled this blue, which is very calming. And I think when they chose this, they said about it being calming, and how that was what they felt we needed this year in such a chaotic kind of time, having, though, no idea of how chaotic it was going to become. And what I found interesting was that they chose this image of these two people distanced. And I thought that was a very, very compelling image to choose in retrospect, obviously. Okay, so let's look at the color trends as they appear for New York Fashion Week. So each year Pantone looks at what's going to be on the runways right before it sort of happens. And then they pull all of those colors out and put together their trend colors for the year. So there's 10, and these are the ones that were from Fashion Week in February, which is when Fall Fashion Week takes place. So what struck me this year was all the warm colors. There's lots of reds and burgundies and oranges. And then we've got this funny yellow that's called green sheen, which to me is like, I know I've seen it a lot, but it's kind of a weird one. And then the classic blue, which is the color of the year, and then that's nicely balanced with ultramarine green. Now, as well as those colors, they also pull what they call the classics. So these are the 4 colors that come up every season, or not every, well, they are different each season, but these are the colors. And I kind of think of them as wardrobe builders. So these are the things you'd buy pants in or buy a jacket in. They're sort of more timeless, and they work really well with accent colors. And you'll find if you play around with these colors and then with the colors in the previous slide, you can find ways in which to make them work together, which is kind of cool. So they're the colors of the year. As well as that, there's trend palettes and trend forecasters that come out about color. And these are some of the more interesting ones that I saw for this season. So on the left, we have this beige tone that's happening again. You know, we've been very obsessed with gray over the last couple of years. And so we're sort of seeing this sort of beigey, creamy palette sort of work its way back in. The other 2 color palettes I find super interesting because they look very spring-like, but they're actually fall and winter palettes. And I sort of see this as indicative of how our clothing is becoming less seasonal. We're wearing similar colors and similar clothing all year round. And part of that is our comfort clothing, you know, like basically living in pajamas,
Sure.
you know, like we all are. These 2 color palettes were really strong for this season, this lovely sort of rich gold, dark gold, old gold. And then on the right, we have these lovely spicy orangey colors. And while they're traditional fall colors, these look very fresh and new all of a sudden. Another story that's really strong this year is this really lovely plum, cherry, burgundy color. It works beautifully with black. It works like wonderfully with turquoise and with greens. And I think it's just so rich and vibrant and alive. I just love it. It looks really fresh again.
It's very rich.
Yeah, it's very rich. It's beautiful. These I thought were really interesting because these were sort of fit in with that same story. And they've got this really kind of vintage feel. And I love that this one on the right had these incredible fair isles, which spoke to me of old Rowan, you know, because so much of Rowan's past has been steeped in this kind of look. So it's interesting that that's sort of coming back to us again now.
It's a classic.
It is, yeah. These 2 are really interesting. Lots of plaid. There's loads and loads of plaid around. Not that I'm advocating knitting plaid because it's just too difficult, but it's there, and that sort of informs what you knit in a way, because if you're going to be wearing a lot of plaid, what are you going to knit that actually goes with that? So that's definitely something to consider, and that's why it's important to understand what's going on in all of fashion, as well as, you know, what's happening with knits. The trend on the right is really something I'm sort of somewhat passionate about, and this is this look of homespun, where things look like they're handmade, and they look incomplete sometimes, or they have got strings hanging off them, and they sometimes they're a bit ratty-tatty, and they're not quite perfect. And I think it's a celebration of the handmade, and I find that absolutely beautiful. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it's just so wonderful to celebrate that imperfection. I found this quote the other day talking about knits for this season, and I thought this was really, really important, because the whole idea of feel-good, comfortable clothing is super important right now. When we've spent most of the year basically in our homes, and you know, we don't know what's going to come for the rest of the year or into next year. So this whole idea of having knits be comfortable, and like they're talking about knitwear sets here, which is basically a pajama set, cozy sweater dresses. And I think knitting as a way of dressing is going to be very, very important this season. And it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I think it's why there's a lot more people knitting right now too. Over the early spring, a lot of people took up knitting who hadn't been doing it for some time. So I think we're going to see a lot of knitting in the fall because of that. Okay, let's look at some of the trends they saw on the runway. Ponchos, ponchos, ponchos. They were everywhere. I love these, the the two here that are the deep V ponchos, which are, real old world 70s, 80s ponchos, and they're definitely coming back. The one on the far right is much more sort of modern, but I think it's got a really interesting shape. And I love fringe. We're seeing lots and lots of fringe. And as knitting people who sell yarn, we really love fringe. We want as much fringe out there as possible.
2 balls of fringe.
Exactly. Yep. I put these in because these are from the Rowan collection, from Rowan Magazine 68. So the piece on the left is this lovely poncho designed by Martin Story. And he's really taken with ponchos this season. But this one's knit side to side, and it's got these lovely big leaf cables. It's got a seed stitch edging. It's just very loose and comfortable and cozy. The one on the right is also by Martin, and that's knit in felted tweed. And that's just simply a long strip, and then it's folded in half, and the 2 edges are sewn together to create a shoulder seam. Another thing we saw were these mini ponchos, lots of them on the runway. The one on the left I think is absolutely gorgeous. Just excuse me for a sec there. And here I found it as a full shot. I just thought that was a wonderful way to show a piece of knitting with this elaborate gown. At Rowan, Martin Story has been doing lots of these little ponchos. These 2 are from his carousel collection. They're knit from the bottom up, and all the shaping takes place in between those motifs. So they're really cute, easy little pieces, comfy to wear, good to just pop on over your clothing. Another thing we're seeing is a lot of layering, and these are sort of poncho shapes, with sort of shorter side seams, and they're obviously perfect for putting over the top of things. And here's some even bigger versions. These large, long pieces, some wide, some narrow. But the one thing that we see in common here is this big, cozy turtleneck, and that you can pull that up over your head, so that neckline and that it becomes like a hood. So I think there's a trend within knitting to look protective as well as to look very, very cozy. And that pull-up hood definitely does that. This isn't really a knitting trend per se, but I saw this so much. I just pulled these few examples. It was the funniest thing. This is the whole idea of taking a sweater that you own and just turning it into a scarf. So we saw a lot of these. So I'm sure everyone's got a lot of extra scarves they didn't know they owned in their wardrobes. These pieces are from Michael Kors. And he's taken the trend to a whole other level, his designers. So on the far left, we've got this dress that has an extra set of sleeves that are sewn into the shoulders, which I can't even imagine because I hate knitting sleeves. I think too many, let alone 4. But the whole idea of this sweater being like a big scarf. Now, the 2 on the right, those sleeves are unbelievably much longer, I think, than the sleeves on the garment. So I think they were designed actually as scarf pieces, almost like an ensemble rather than as a sweater that's, wrapped over. Another thing that I saw a lot of, and I've been seeing this a little bit in the past couple of seasons, but a lot more of it this time, was these sort of undone sweaters. So side seams not sewn up, or the one in the center has zippers for the side, for the side and underarm seam. The one on the left, the sleeve seams are open. I just thought that was, obviously not something in knitting world we would do, but it's just interesting to me that it happens. Here's some more versions. And then the one on the left was kind of interesting. You knit 2 half sleeves, sew them into your shoulder seam, and you've got your built-in scarf, which seems more doable to me. I'd rather knit 2 half sleeves.
Those are beautiful.
Yeah, it's really sweet, isn't it? And I love the little underarm ties on that too.
Yes.
I think that'd be a really nice piece to actually knit. Okay, this has been around definitely for a few seasons now, and it's all about deconstruction, reconstruction. And the idea here is about recycling our clothing. So, there's been a whole rise in fashion of clothing, rather than putting it in landfills, selling it again in stores or, doing something with it. A lot of clothing is now, shredded to make yarn and to make other fabric. So these pieces are actually bits and pieces of sweaters that are sort of cut up and put back together again. While obviously it's probably not done that way, it's to give that sense of that feeling of, reconstructing our clothing. There were a few shows where I saw clothing that was constructed of both knits and fabric. And I thought that was a really interesting take as well.
Mm-hmm.
Here at Hermes are these beautiful, great big sweaters that look like they're cut up pieces of other sweaters and stitched back together. See these crazy buttons and all that big stitching, and that's all part of that, homespun look. So it looks like someone's hand done this. These pieces also look like they've been cut up and reconstructed. And while it's not been done that way, look at that scarf the girl's wearing in the two side shots. That's constructed like a sweater. So it's a long piece, and then it sort of comes to a bottom and turns a corner for the other one. So it's giving that impression of being that, even though it's not really doing it. Lots of hanging off bits of string and beads, and then on the right, this important thing of the thread that's being sort of unraveled and undone, which is, to me, super interesting. There were definitely chunky knits on the runway, and we love that because we love a bit of big wool, because it's so quick and fast and fun. And then there's always someone who goes to the absolute extreme.
Arm knitting.
Yeah, exactly. And you will not be seeing this yarn in Rowan at any time in the future.
Thank you.
Another thing that we definitely saw a lot of is this sort of it's sparkly yarn, but very subtly sparkly. And that's one of the things that is happening at Rowan this year. They've got a new yarn called Patina, which is very, very subtle sparkle. And these pieces are all designed by Martin Story, and they're all designed to be worn from day into evening. So they have just a little bit of sparkle to make them look great, for work, but enough also to keep them interesting enough for evening.
This is a beautiful yarn, people. I have a skein of it, and I'll be doing a yarn review on it when it gets released. It's really, really lovely.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
And soft. You don't think it would be that soft with the sparkle in it, but it's just to die for.
Yep, absolutely. Another big trend that I saw was this whole top to toe covered in knitting. And these pieces are all from Dolce & Gabbana. So if you're interested in them, it's worth actually going and taking a look at this show, because they had something like 122 pieces that were, most of them were knit or crochet. And it's like, some of them have knit socks, some of them have knit bags, some of them have knit underwear pieces, knit shorts, knit pants, knit skirts, knit everything, knit wraps, knit hats. It's like crazy. And here it is in other shows, not quite as over the top, but the whole idea of this sort of sweater dressing. The girl in the brown with that, the coat and the scarf and the underpieces, that's how I would dress every day if I could. I just love it. It's
fabulous.
It's the closest to wearing pajamas you can get. These big oversized jacket pieces, as a trend, inspired Lisa Richardson at Rowan to create this piece. This is 2 strands of yarn held together. You knit the back, and then you pick up to knit the sides off the back, and then add the sleeves. So it has this wonderful swing to it. So it's a really fun sort of coat. I pulled this because while it's not hand knit, it gives the idea of knit pants and knit tops and more of this, layering. And knit pants, there were a lot of those, mostly machine knit. But at Mode at Rowan, we actually have our own knit pants. So these fabulous rib pants, apparently there's quite a discussion going on Ravelry about them.
I am totally knitting these.
Oh, you are?
Already did stuff. Oh, you betcha.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear that. I love them. I think they're gorgeous.
I do too.
So the pants are topped with this textured turtleneck sweater, and that's topped with a very simple seed stitch poncho and then the seed stitch hat. So as an overall look, it covers completely from head to toe. There's definitely sleeve action happening this year. You're not going to see a lot of it in knitting, but you'll see little bits of it. But there's this action that's going on pleating and with gathering at sleeve tops. And then I love on the bottom, these are all drop sleeves that are then gathered. And then the two on the left, I think there's a name for, I think they're calling it the balloon cuff. I just call it the puff cuff, but just because I like a little rhyme. But they're calling them balloon cuffs. And here's another version here that I thought was really striking.
Beautiful.
You can see that we can see the shoulder pads there too. So they're coming.
That's me. That's totally something I would wear.
It's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah.
I pulled these because they're sort of loop stitch knits, and they're very mohairy and furry and warm and very cozy. And that's definitely a trend, this whole cozy thing. Very soft, which is lovely. Okay, so let's look at the key shapes. There are two major shapes I think are defining sweaters for this season. The first one is the cozy slouchy turtleneck. These were everywhere, and now that we're basically living at home a lot, this to me is what you come home or you're at home and you put on and you just wear. Or, you put it over your pajamas to go to the store. Here's some more versions that I saw. And again, on the left, we have that big cowl neckline that you pull up over your head. I love the color on this one. It's really lovely. And again, the puffy cuff thing that's happening there. So there's different variations on this one shape. There's also a lot of exaggerated raglans. And I know we've been seeing those in knitting patterns for a little while, but they were definitely around on the runway and in that sort of slouchy shape as well. And I love these because it's like knit pajamas, which, it's like you can put these lovely pajama-like things on and actually walk out of your house. There were a lot of knitted dresses, and some of those were layering pieces. Cozy, simple sweaters, because sweaters are a really important part of how, we need to dress right now. This is from Mode at Rowan, and this is their take on the cozy slouchy sweater. And I love this because I'm a bit of a fan of this mistake rib stitch. This is a new yarn that we have coming this season. I think it's launching October 1st. It's called Merino Aria, and aria meaning air in Italian. This yarn is stunning and one of the most lightweight, chunky yarns I have ever seen. So
it's beautiful. It is so beautiful. Ginny started the one of the scarves in the sample pack, and it's just incredible. It's really hard to describe how beautifully this knits up.
It shows stitches incredibly.
Yes.
And here's another piece from Mode at Rowan, designed by Georgia Farrell. She's like a master of texture. And you can see how beautifully that seed stitch zigzag at the side of the sweater shows up in this yarn. It's just beautiful. Also from Rowan, this is from the Tweed collection. It's a small booklet that's coming out. This is knit in Rowan's Valley Tweed, held together with a strand of Kid Silk Haze. And it creates a completely new fabric that drapes unbelievably. And this is, again, it's the big slouchy, turtleneck, the big shape.
Beautiful.
The other shape I believe that's really important is the V-neck, whether that's a V-neck cardigan or a V-neck sweater. And at Mode at Rowan, we have this lovely V-neck cardigan that's knit with two strands of Alpaca Classic. A strand of Alpaca Classic and a strand of Alpaca Soft DK held together. So it's a nice fast knit, and that also creates like an unexpected fabric. Super lightweight and really warm.
That's stunning. It's so elegant with that slip dress too.
Isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yep. These other cardigans, V-neck cardigans, short sleeve and long sleeve, are designed by Martin Story in felted tweed. Again, echoing that trend. And this V-neck, is in the Merino Aria again. And it's that very loose turtleneck. You can see the wide sleeves there too. But fast to knit, so you get that done and on yourself as quickly as possible. Lots of crop tops were around, but really short crop tops. You'll be glad there's none in the Rowan collections to show you those. But another thing that I saw as a really big trend is this sort of updated version of a sweater vest. You'll notice these all have drop shoulders. These are some more sort of cozy, knitterly versions that were on the runway.
Those are elegant.
They're lovely, aren't they? It's hard to say that they were on the runway because on the runway doesn't really quite exist the way it used to, but that's a whole other discussion. Here's some more, just these lovely, lovely shapes. And then at Mode at Rowan, we have, this is the same piece in 2 different lengths, and it's a seed stitch, and it's also in a new yarn coming out next month called Soft Boucle. And the Soft Boucle is, it sort of comes from that teddy trend, you know, the teddy coat trend.
Yeah.
So it has this lovely, lovely brushed feeling to it. It's really lightweight and really fun.
I'm knitting that one on the left right now.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Do you like the yarn?
It's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Good.
Silky.
Yes.
So silky. You wouldn't expect it to be, you know, a lot of times you think a boucle is going to be like a Berber carpet, but it's just silky beyond belief.
Yeah, it is lovely. And this is like, this is something I like because it has no sleeves and I don't have to knit that. But it's such a versatile thing to have, you know? Like you can throw it over your clothes, you can belt it, you can layer it under a coat. I mean, there's so much you can do with that. I think it's really, very cool. And then also at Mode at Rowan, there's a longer version with wide ribs, which is really nice and flattering to make you look a little skinnier and a little taller. So let's look at some colorwork trends because there was a lot of that. Sometimes I think that fashion designers actually look at the knitting world, the hand knitting world, and see what we're making. And I think they saw that there's a lot of yoke sweaters being knit right now, and the runway had so many of them. So many collections feature them. I love the one on the left because it, firstly, it's those beautiful new spicy colors, and also because there's brushed yarns in there. And I think that looks really fresh and modern. This is a piece in the Rowan collection that's a sort of a more traditional looking yoke sweater. Some of the collections had them in these lovely blacks, creams, grays, and browns, which I thought looked really modern. There were some square yokes as well. The one on the left, you know, shows the inside of the knitting, and fashion designers seem to like showing that, though I can't imagine anyone in knitting ever really doing it. Here's some more with embellishments and really like interesting color combinations, again, that we probably wouldn't do as part of the knitting world, but which I think are really fun. There are a lot of argyles around, and I kind of like an argyle, and I really love the one on the right that's got that sort of mild look, which I think is really fun. And I thought these were super creative. So the one on the left is one giant argyle that's turned into a sweater coat, and the one on the right is very sporty. That's from Lacoste, and that sort of shape, I forget what you call it, shirt, you know, the men's shirt like that, is like a definite trend that you're going to see more of coming into spring next year. And then the one in the center I love just because it's so textural, but it's using that exaggerated raglan and placing those argyles right in the center. I think it's really pretty. Here's some argyles or extensions of argyles where the sweaters match the scarves. And then there's plaid knitting, obviously, you know, it happens. Just not for a lot of machine. Yeah, exactly. Now, these plaids and argyles are very traditional. And at Rowan, they created these 2 beautiful pieces I want to show you. This is a houndstooth jacket, double-breasted. And if you open that up, the front piece actually folds inside. And so if the coat swings open, you actually see netting on the inside for most of the fronts as well. So it has these lovely sort of tailoring pieces of construction, and that's knit with 2 strands of valley tweed held together, I believe.
That is beautiful.
It's gorgeous. It's quite a project, and I think it's, I think you probably knit a coat once in your lifetime, and I would say if you're going to do it, this is the one. I think it's stunning.
Such beautiful tailoring, I think, in the finishing,
Yeah, absolutely. All the details are just gorgeous. I love it. This for the if you don't want to, get so carried away. This is also made in Valley Tweed, and this is a slip stitch pattern in 3 colors. And I think it's really lovely. And the way this fabric comes together, it's very stable, and it holds really well. And this is like a Chanel style jacket, and this is in 2 lengths. I've got the same length obviously here, but it comes in a shorter version. So if you're into that sort of Chanel jacket look, this is a really lovely tailored looking piece. Lots of black and white patterning. I find a lot of this patterning, is a little bit 80s, which is fine. Folkloric patterns are really important. These big overblown florals and motifs. Then I want to show you these because Arnie and Carlos created this collection, and they did exactly the same thing. So these motifs are taken from traditional, hand-painted cupboards and platters and some of the painting inside the Norwegian stave churches, and they took these motifs and then, particularly on the right, blew that big motif up and colored it in a completely unusual way. And on the striped sweaters, you can see these swirl motifs that are from traditional wood carvings, sort of again blown up, blasted on the sweater, and in a completely different colorway. Martin Story did this collection called Carousel, and these are the 2 stand-up pieces that a lot of people are really interested in. And again, he's taken these, very traditional folk motifs. On the left, he's blown this one up and put like completely different colors into it, and that's his moonflower coat. And on the right, we have this, like a very traditional floral motif. And then he's, again, blown it out of proportion and then striped the coloring. So that's like a circular piece, which is really lovely. These 2 are, as I said, are the favorites so far on Ravelry.
That looks like a good beginner, maybe Farrell kind of stranded knitting with that cowl.
Yes.
Because it's in the round. There's no purling in the no stranded purling.
Nope. And it's gorgeous. So pretty. And then Martin's actually pulled together 3 or 4 more colorways that he's going to be posting on Instagram this week to show different ways of approaching that.
I had this actually put up as a kit in the shop.
Oh, you do? Oh, lovely. It's gorgeous. This animal print is big, as is patchwork knitting. And I love the piece on the left because that kind of is a big patchwork. It's like just a knitted quilt. And I thought these were interesting. They're sort of patchwork, sort of bicolored ribs. Another patchwork design. I'm calling this look prairie. I'm not sure if anyone else is, but to me it's very much like those 80s sweaters. And in fact, the first issue of Vogue Knitting had a cardigan on the cover that looked very, very similar to the one on the far left. But it has that sort of homespun-y look. Anyway, I just thought they were really sort of interesting. And here is an extension of that homespun look with the bits of threads hanging off and showing it from the inside. So in a way that celebrates the work by showing the inside as much as, wearing it from the outside. Again, stripes. There's always stripes. Designers love to add stripes because they can play with color and pattern and do some really interesting things. Like, for instance, on the far left, you've got that big stitching, overblown stitching, which is like that homespun look. The second one, I love that there's this red armband on that, which most people just wouldn't think about doing, but a fashion designer would. And then I love in the center, the vest looks very, very homemade. There's crochet around the edges, mismatched buttons, and it looks just really cool. Looks really fun. Lots of big stripes everywhere too. And then there were a lot of picture knits. The one on the left is very Princess Di.
Yes. That hair is very 80s too, isn't it?
Oh, very, isn't it? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the whole thing. Then I wanted to show you this. This was the picture knit that we have at Rowan this season that's getting a lot of attention. This is called Rain, and it's by Ani and Carlos. And this is a very, very old reindeer motif that they've taken and updated. It's very folkloric, and I just think it's really kind of cool. Also incredibly popular. We aren't doing this at Rowan this season, but I'm sure they'll come in the future. This whole picture knit thing and the big overblown florals. The piece on the right is hand painted after it's been knit. It's really kind of fun.
Oh, that's interesting. Hand painted after.
Yes, there's two designers I know who do this. One of them is Lynette Meek. I believe she's Canadian, where she'll actually knit something and then she'll paint it like a shawl or something. And she'll paint flowers on it. And, I'd be afraid to ruin it, but it's amazing.
This looks very Sasha Kagan. Do you remember Sasha Kagan?
Yes.
Don't you think?
Does, doesn't it? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, these big florals, big overblown florals. We're actually thinking about going into the Rowan archive and pulling some old ones out, maybe redoing them. Because while we see this on the runway now, this is not going to become mainstream till at least next year. These big overblown fruit. And again, that's something we've seen before. I'm sure they're in the Rowan archives. This isn't kind of related, but it kind of is. I just love these. This was at Versace. And what they did was they took these beautiful, Aran sweaters and then over embroidered in these incredibly beautiful, bright colors. I just thought it was really fun to show you because it's just so cool.
That is beautiful.
So let's look at some stitchery. I love when they come to us. So this is brioche stitch, and we know Nancy Marchand developed these stitches up until when she got her needles going. Pretty much brioche was brioche,
Mm-hmm.
So it's really interesting to see how the fashion world, takes a stitch like that and does something completely different with it. Here's a little close-up, which I found of behind the scenes at the, backstage, which I think it's lovely. A little bit of entrelac. This next sweater is one of my favorite pieces from all the collections. This is knit in some sort of seedy, moss stitchy colorwork thing. I showed it to Ani and Carlos. They're going to see if they can tackle and work out exactly how you make something look as fabulous as that. So that's going to be interesting. Lots of textured knits. Again, it's the sloppy, slouchy over, big net turtleneck. Modern lace. Again, you can see the puffy cuff, the balloon cuff there. Some bobbling and embroidery. This slide I put in because this is a big trend that's incredibly important. It's the idea of taking the same clothing for men and for women. The styling's very similar. You can see the hair's very similar. And that's something you're going to see more and more of. Like the entire collection Ani and Carlos did this year for Rowan is designed to be worn by both men and women. And it's sized accordingly. Beautiful stitch work here, again combined with fabric because we know that's the thing happening. And this, I believe, was at Michael Kors. And this is a gorgeous, gorgeous Aran scarf and sweater. And then this is leather lacing that's been embroidered into the stitching.
Look at that.
Isn't that cool?
Very.
So cool. Some lovely soft cables, which we always see around. Directional cables. This piece on the left where it looks like she's got a knit bra on top, that whole sort of lingerie thing is definitely happening right now. Some more cables, big sweater dresses, patchwork cables, layered cables. The open cable thing is still happening. I've seen that for a few seasons now. I thought this was an interesting approach to creating this patterning with short rows. And there's lots of lace, old lady lace, kind of. It's cool, but they remind me of clothes from a completely other time. Yeah. And I've got some crochet. I like that to show you in a few minutes too. Lacy sweaters, a little bit 80s also.
Mm-hmm.
And overblown lace, in sort of a more chunky look. So let's take a look at some accessories. The knitted short. So if you get to the point where you can't knit any more of your pants, you could stop And you could have
Yeah, no.
Can't believe you said no. Knitted pants, as we've seen, are definitely a thing, and knitted skirts.
That I would do for sure. I just need a dress.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a little ensemble at Rowan. This is in magazine 68. And this is a felted tweed skirt with a felted tweed Aran sort of poncho top.
This is beautiful. Beautiful.
It's really, really
ensemble.
nice. Yeah, I love it. I think it's really lovely. I'd want to make the top a little longer for myself, but I think it's really fun. Big, generous wraps. There's a lot of these, almost like blanket size. And I did want to show you a couple of blankets because Erica Knight is back with Rowan this season. And these are 2 blankets she created. The one on the right is a knit herringbone stitch, and that's in creative linen. She's in love with linen, because it's very, it's trans-seasonal, but it's also, like a fiber that lasts,
Yeah, absolutely. Very durable.
Very, very, very durable. And then she kind of likes the idea of taking these big blankets and then wearing them. The one on the left is brush fleece and creative linen. So knitting 2 yarns of completely different gauges together in this herringbone colorwork creates an entirely different fabric. And this is one that I know has become incredibly popular right now. I love it. I think it's gorgeous.
And you have the fringe on that too.
Yes. Yes. And more fringe here on these generous oversized scarves. And I did want to throw in some scarves here. These are from Georgia Farrell, and her collection is really worth taking a look at. It's all based on knit and purl stitches, and it's all inspired by architecture. But these big, generous scarves and wraps are something that are really important for us this season. And I think now that we're living the year that we're living, I think they become even more important. Definitely lots of gloves and wristers. The gloves on the left were the most interesting ones. And when I showed this presentation to Ani and Carlos, they both told me that they'd watched all the men's shows. And I tend not to watch all the men's shows. I'll watch some. But they saw a lot of these knitted gauntlets for men. And the idea is they have this big cuff and they go over your coat or over your jacket. And they kind of look very protective. And as the years panned out, you can see how they would be appealing right now.
Yeah.
Piece on the right is a really fun project. It's just like an obi. So it's just basically a cowl that you put around your waist. And I love the way it just adds an element of texture and interest to that outfit. And then they've belted over the top of it. And there were quite a lot of socks. These were, I think these are Gucci. Gucci or Dolce & Gabbana. I'm not really sure. I should know that. Anyway, they're shown with they're Gucci. Oh, I just looked at the bag. They're shown with very like expensive and very dressy shoes. So that's kind of interesting. And lots of knitted bags. The one on the left looks like an upcycled knit. And the one on the right is one of those great bags from Dolce & Gabbana. So let's take a quick look at crochet, because crochet, fashion-wise, for this summer was supposed to be like a big trend. I didn't leave my apartment much, so I didn't really get to see if people were really wearing it or not. So crochet is continuing on into the fall. So these are very 70s and 80s inspired pieces in just sort of modern colorways. The whole layering look too and fringing is just as important in crochet. This is the homespun folkloric look from Anna Sui. Head to toe from Dolce & Gabbana, and more Dolce & Gabbana. And again, that sort of lingerie look being shown. Sort of funny granny squares. And then there's more of this sort of thread crochet, and it's kind of like that old lady lace I was talking about before. And these I just loved. Aren't they so cool? Crochet stocking. Cool. Yeah, I thought they were like, I was like, oh my God, that's so wonderful. Now, one of the things about fashion shows is that there's a lot of fun that goes on, and some people are incredibly creative, and then there's some pieces that are just a little wacky each season. So I pulled some of those to show you. These 3 hats. The one on the right with the teacups, there was quite a few teacup head like things in that show.
Really? More than one person did a teacup hat.
Yes.
Shocking.
It is. The one on the left, I forget, I think that was Rodati. And they remind me of like old lady shower caps.
Yes.
You know, that your grandmother wore when you were a child.
Or Miss Muffet, you know?
Yes, exactly. And then the piece in the center, I thought, what is this? Are these baseball caps that are joined and then with a hat on top? Or I don't know.
It's almost like a bra or something.
I know. I wasn't going to say it, but you did.
Sorry. That's who I am.
It's okay. They are interesting. And then I love this because this guy is wearing 2 skeins of yarn around his neck.
That's a project I could finish.
Exactly. Exactly. I love it. And I love that, you know, I love the color of his hair with it and the way he's holding it, and that he walked out in a runway with, you know, this beautiful yarn. Just thought that was wonderful. And then to end the show, I wanted to show you this because this made the news quite a bit at the show in February, but this was at Issey-Miyake, and he did it as an installation piece. And the idea here is to show interconnection of people, and he used knit as a way to connect us all. And this was February, and then suddenly come March and April, then there was a massive disconnect. Anyway, I just thought it was a very poignant piece and really quite beautiful.
It is beautiful. It's almost like it's establishing the 6 feet, you know?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So one of the things, I'm going to sit up here, my chair squeaks, that I saw kind of in the pieces that you picked that I've seen coming in the Rowan line is the little splashes of the neons, you know, that brilliant cobalt and that, you know, the electric green and whatever. And it reminded me so much of those beautiful colors that Big Wool has this season,
Yes.
You know, just sort of popping out at this kind of random moment, you know, that like, I don't know, I like to think about it as random moments of joy, you know. You can just sort of take hold of those.
When we looked at the color cards for Rowan's new cashmere this season, I was like, everything was so pale. I'm like, you've got to throw a color in there that kicks it, you know?
Yeah.
So we put in this wonderful orange. And
is
it's
that the
same.
Is that the one lipstick?
No, lipstick's the red.
Red,
I think it's the one next to the lipstick.
Yeah.
I can look if you want me to. I have a color card.
It's okay. I ordered it.
Okay. But I love the idea of that orange because you could knit a beautiful pair of gloves in gray and then just tip them in that orange, you know?
Oh, what a brilliant idea.
Just like an orange cashmere hat. That's what I'd like to make with it this year.
Would
just
you?
Bright orange hat, you know?
We got some fun comments during your presentation. I didn't want to interrupt you, but yeah. So Amelia loves the ultramarine green and purple, the ponchos. And Smoot has a son in Baltimore. He's very hip, and they're doing the deconstruction, reconstruction.
That's great.
Yeah. So B likes the feminine look.
Oh, the sparkly, the patina.
Oh yeah, beautiful, beautiful stuff. Let's see. Yep. Michael's casting on the gray sweater.
Oh.
Okay, so Jal had a chunky brown turtleneck 20 years ago, and recently Marie Kondoed it. Never get rid of knitwear.
No.
You might have to cut it up and felt it and wear it again or something.
Exactly.
Danette. Which one did you love, Danette? Are you still on? Yeah, Karen agrees on the sleeves. Yeah, pretty. Everybody likes the classic jacket. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful stuff. Anyway, I think that is a lot of fun, and I am so. Let me see how I get rid of that. Yeah. Okay. So, did anybody have any questions for Trisha about this, or any comments that you wanted to make, or anything that she can explain further to you. We have a couple minutes left. Would be happy to hear from you. But this has been so much fun. I mean, it must be, I know it sounds, it is actually hard work to kind of look at all those trends and kind of keep them in your head and remember and move them around and whatnot.
Yeah, but it's fun. I don't mind doing it. I quite enjoy it. The spring summer shows are actually happening right now. And I spent like half an hour this afternoon just watching shows and looking for knits.
Who do you find to be the most inspiring?
It's a good question. There's always a lot of good knits at Michael Kors.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always really interested to see what they do. Chanel always does something really cool. It depends. They're probably, there's a designer from New Zealand I love, Tanya. No, I can't think of her name. Tanya someone. And I find her work, she always does great knits. Cynthia Rowley usually has something,
Mm-hmm.
and Swee always does something kind of out there. It depends what their collection's about, how much knit they'll put in, or what kind of a knit they'll put in.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting. It's interesting to see, their take on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Agree. We completely agree with you. We do not have to like everything that's trending. Yep.
Oh yeah, go ahead. You can take this one on the camel.
Yes. If you look at mode at Rowan for this season, pretty much half that collection's camel. So if you're a camel lover, that's going to make you very happy.
Yeah, I think the colors are beautiful. I always, I look at the palette, there's all those neutrals, and then there's that sort of, like you talked about, the spicy colors. There's like 3 or 4 colors of Alpaca Classic that are new, that kind of work in from the nude to the spicy, and the kind of a warm pink to burgundy. I think that's a beautiful palette. So,
yeah. Agree completely.
Yeah. Good.
And they added that dark red and the navy into the mode palette, which I thought was lovely too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Took it to another place.
It did. And I think it's a little pop, not too much. I mean, it's not like it's acid green, but it's it's a pop for mode, which is fine. I mean, when you knit something and it takes that long, you want to wear it for more than a season. You want to really incorporate it into your, it's an investment piece. You want it as part of your stable wardrobe for a really long time.
Yep, absolutely.
So B has asked what your favorite season to review is.
Oh, definitely fall, winter. It's so much more knitting. Like, I'm going through shows right now for spring, summer, and, you might get 1 or 2 knits, if there's any at all, So definitely fall, winter.
Yeah. So we seem to get a lot of people are liking the olive.
Yes.
Olive's been off the palette for probably a decade. And now, to have it back, I think that's really, really nice.
Yes, agree.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to begin the season of Mode and Rowan together. And thank you so much for sharing your insight. It's just fascinating to kind of see these pieces with you and through your eyes. I think that's just tremendous. So I appreciate your time. And I think you'll be back on Saturday, right?
I will be back on Saturday with David, and we're going to be actually showing in much more depth the Mode at Rowan collection.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. And we're going to be, if you have ordered one of the Rowan tasting packs already, I did get those out today. So you should get yours tomorrow or Friday at the latest. It's still plenty of time to order those. We're going to be doing kind of a little tasting with David then on October 3rd, when the 2 new yarns have been released. So those will come under separate cover, but it's not too late to order a tasting kit. We'll be talking about the collection. I think we'll be talking about the yarns as well. So I think that will be a lot of fun. And that will be this Saturday at 10 o'clock. And that's with David McLeod, who you saw in I guess, May. He's the Rowan brand manager, and he'll be joining us from Great Britain. And Trisha will be back with us. So that will be a very, very fun event, I think. So be sure to join us then. So again, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Absolutely. Thank
All right.
you very much, Ellen.
Yep. Good night.
Good night.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time. I know that it was a very special hour-long presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed. I enjoyed it. Being with Trisha, I think she's amazing, isn't she? So yeah, I'm excited to see her back on Saturday, and I know that you will enjoy seeing David as well on Saturday. So mark your calendars and order a tasting kit if you are interested in those yarns that are in there, because that's always fun. And let me see if there's anything else. Yes, Eastern time. That's 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern time. So how much behind us are you in Kentucky, Gwen? Is that 1 or 2 hours? All right. So thanks so much. But that's 10 o'clock Eastern time, and I will see you then. Have a lovely evening.